Hey guys, welcome to Wires, Tires, and Fires. That comes off the tongue nice. I'm liking it. I'm your host, Brent, and this week we're going to be working on a Cat 302.5 mini excavator. Now, some of you longtime watchers may have seen episode 1, which is up there now, on this machine. And my buddy ran it all last year. You know, he works full-time, but this is his part-time project gig. But some issues have arisen, but not the same ones as last year. So, all in all, good. The exhaust is holding up together, though he did have a second go at welding that, and that seemed to really seal it up. But the problems that we are going to deal with are, one, it doesn't seem to charge well, even though it's had 3 alternators. I'm not sure why he pulled out the parts cannon and just pow, pow, pow. 3 alternators. I think I would have stopped at 2 or 1 or maybe even none and just got it tested. But what you gonna do? So there's that, which is pretty straightforward. We're just gonna have to probe some things out. The voltage regulator is built into the alternator, so that's not a separate part. We'll get into that in a bit though. So the other thing that it needs is this lift cylinder on the ram. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's literally a chunk missing out of the seal, and it just needs redoing. That's basically all there is to it. It also has this hard line was really twisted, and so we twisted it back, and now it has a hole in it. So we're either gonna get a new hard line if possible, or we're gonna weld that one up. Not a big deal. And we might also do this ram because it's got a weird discoloration to it. Nothing you can pick up with a fingernail. It's definitely not scratches, but it's a strange discoloration to it. Though this cylinder's definitely been rebuilt. You can see witness marks of previous tool use on it. So I don't know, but this cylinder's acting weird. So it could be that something's going wrong with the gland on the inside or whatnot. We'll have to take a better look at that once the machine's up and running again. Other than that, she's a solid machine. You know, this cylinder doesn't leak, doesn't have any signs of weepage on it. He's been putting the grease to all the joints when he runs it. You'll notice there's plenty of grease in there. Plenty of grease. You can't over grease your machine. And then there's one more big thing we got to work on, and that is she's a mite bit incontinent. This is actually something that I think we'll be able to fix relatively quickly, and I'm gonna get a light down here and we'll show you some more about what I think is going wrong with it, and why it's like a $5 fix, which is as much oil as he'd lose in about a couple of days. So if you look up there, this is the feed for what is, I think, the main, yeah, I think the main and only hydraulic pump right up there. But if you look right there, as I push on it, if you can see it, you can see the fluids just leaking out of this. And you can also see it's got double hose clamps on it already, but they're not the same size, so that's not factory. Somebody has been here before us. The other reason why I think it's this and not something north of here is that I can touch this whole thing and it's not wet above that point. And it really is, like, you can see a nice drip of clean hydraulic oil coming off of there. That's another telltale. If the drop of hydraulic oil, like, there's a little drop there. You see how it's dark? So that's probably traveled to get there. It's picking up crap as it floats down the Mystic River here. That's what we're going to have to get off. We're going to have to take this off. We're going to have to drain the whole system. And you can see these clamps are, I don't know. I don't think they're the right clamps for the application. I don't think that's the right hose, too. It's awfully girthy, but I guess that's what you'd want. We'll kind of look around elsewhere. He knows that the rotational cylinder leaks a little bit, but again, it's one of those things, it's not bad enough to warrant the amount of work it takes to fix the problem at the moment. You know, maybe another year or two, we'll split the top from the bottom and fix that, but not unless we have to. So, and while we're at it, we're probably going to do the water pump, which is right there. Because the unit came with one, and my buddy has issues with it overheating if he doesn't run it with the lid off. So because he has the water pump, we'll do that. I worry that it might be a head gasket issue. We're also going to try to get a valve cover for this, because clearly the valve cover just leaks like a son of a gun. And once we do that, we'll probably, you know, degrease and maybe not pressure wash, but at least hose all the grease off so we can see in the future where the leaks are. But I mean, kind of every part of the hydraulic system, this looks a little bit wet, which is, you know, on a machine this age with this much use, doesn't have a ton of hours, but I think it's got a ton of hours. And finally, we're gonna do something about the control panel being stuck in there. We tried to do something about it last time, but we could get most of the bolts out. We couldn't take this handle out because that was stuck. But here, I've got some star pattern bits that we can try, and I can also weld a nut onto it, and we're gonna get that off. We're gonna take this off, we're gonna glue this back on, we're gonna cover up those holes and glue those over as well, because it just makes me sick to see it like this. Though, I will say this machine does not live outside. It lives in a shipping container, Connex box. So, and it's got a roof, so it's not that bad, but it should all be fixed right because it's way cheaper to fix it now, especially since one of these control panels is like 1,500 bucks. So, you know, a not insignificant portion of the value of the machine. You'll note the seat's not on it, but that he has back at his house. He's got some stuff to fix that up with. So, yeah. I think that'll do it. We might try to find some bolts for some of the missing floor plate bolts, because I just hate the look of that. We'll get there, and but that's the main leaks on this thing. So, but before I work on this, I wanted you guys to see the puddle on the back where it was, but I want to move this over. The skid steer was parked here and we brought it in, so we stuffed it off the side, but I want to move this over in the middle so I'm not working in the dirt, and I'm not leaking in the dirt, because I can clean up the pavement a little bit easier. So we'll get this puppy fired up and check all the functions on it real quick, and then Parker, right there. I want to make it very clear, I have run this machine once before, and a mini excavator only one other time many moons ago. So it's gonna be ugly. Might have more of a battery problem than I thought. It wasn't the battery. You gotta lift the arm up to make it safe so that the hydraulics are kicked out so it can start. I don't know, weird safety. It's also a dead battery. Maybe it would have started if I did it right from the get-go, but I don't know. Whatever. All right, guys, so we're gonna start in this general vicinity. I did already take this handle off. We're gonna take this metal piece out and just clean it up, spray paint it, stuff it back in, glue it back up. I mean, it's not worth replacing, but it is worth, you know, fixing up a little bit. We're gonna drill that. There's one that's broken off in there. We're gonna get new bolts for it, just to get it, like, I don't know, half decent. And then we're gonna take off this handle here, which requires you to unplug the cable for the, oh, the horn is active even when it's off, for the horn. And yeah, get access to this. And then we're gonna take off the back cover. Oh, there's already one back cover off. Get that out so we can get at the alternator. The alternator is like right there, but it's easier to access from the front than the back. So, because this thing, I don't think this has ever charged since he owned it. He's put, like I said, 3 alternators in it. So, let's just, let's get to the bottom of this. So one really neat thing about this machine is, because it's an older machine, it's called what's called a pilot control machine. So this is not a electrical joystick. This, actually, you're actuating 4 little valves here, and all this can be adjusted. This is actually still, you know, feels reasonably tight. It's not all worn out. So these use a pilot control system, which is actually a similar system to what the old Dynaho 200-4 used, also pilot controlled. These are just a little more sophisticated. There's hydraulic lines, a whole bundle of them under here that go back down to the controls. And that's typically how, I think on this, they cut off the hydraulics. The pump is still running and the pressure is still available for the valves for the cylinders, but the pressure is not available for the pilot control valves. And I think that's the typical way to do that. If I'm incorrect, let me know. And I'm sure every flavor has been done over the years. So I know this looked pretty terrible. It's actually not that bad. The whole unit itself is not broken, which is actually really good. That being said, actually, I wonder if my buddy can get from Cat this. Because there's not a thing, I mean, this isn't cracked here where these mounting gears are. It's not cracked here. And those two lights that look so terrible, they don't go to anything. I'm surely gonna seal this up with like a epoxy or some sort of sealant, silicone, glue a little piece over here just to make it not look like shit. But actually the dashboard's perfect. It's just this plastic little handle that's really just taken, I don't know what kind of abuse has been heaped on it, but there's been plenty of it. So yeah, we might look into getting one of these if it's possible. So I kind of wondered, if it wasn't charging, why weren't any of these lights coming on? I know that light works. So we'll go through and we'll test the oil light, I assume that's a temperature light, but I have no idea what that one's for. I'll have to look that one up on the wiring diagram. But then the battery light. So since I know that this one works, we'll set our meter. Easy way to do is just set your meter to resistance, and heck, you can even set it to beep mode, and we'll back probe. The light I know works, and you can tell that it's beeping because of the way that it's beeping. That means that that filament in there, because the rest of it's disconnected, it means the filament in the bulb is good. So we'll try the next one. Interesting. Interesting. So all of these apparently work, and I'm gonna take the bulb out just to make sure that my testing wasn't faulty, because I would have expected this bulb to be bad, but oh no, with a visual inspection, the filament's clearly intact. So whatever issue is here, something should be turning this on. And I'll have to track back what turns this on, but it should be turned on at the alternator, which makes me wonder if there's a questionable connection to the alternator, because the same connector that sends the signal out is also the same connector that gets the excitation voltage for the alternator. Everything on the back of this looks really good though. We're gonna get some epoxy, and we'll also bring it to the hardware store and, like, you know, get a bolt for in there. A little bit would go a long way on making this look a lot better and work a lot better. So I don't know what the hours were on the last time we checked it, but they're up to 13:29 now. I don't know, it seems too good to have rolled over, but it doesn't seem good enough for the hours on it. So, you know, you guys tell me. I apologize for the camera angle, but this is about the best I can do. But if you see, there's a sort of a boot, a right angle boot on the top of the alternator. And then below that, there's a plug with two wires going into it. So I'm gonna disconnect that plug and pull it out to where we can see at it a little bit. We're gonna be able to test that the light works, and we're gonna be able to test that the excitation voltage gets where it's supposed to go. So that'll be a big thing. If we don't have excitation voltage, I think the next step would be to do some more testing, because basically that means that somewhere where this wire comes back, something bad happened to it. And we're probably gonna find a chafed spot if that's the case. The reason why these sorts of problems don't become super big deals right away is because this is a mechanically actuated diesel. If you don't have the lights on, once you started it, it doesn't pull a whole lot of power. It just, for a couple of gauges, a few, you know, it's in the milliamp range of what it's going to pull while it's running, unlike a car that actually pulls a lot more amperage. So, you know, if you're used to working on cars and you get into diesels and you have alternator issues, you can really mask them for quite a while. I actually suspect the alternator in our Gale is not 100% up to the task, but I also don't run it a lot, so I tend to put it on a trickle charger when I park it up. So it doesn't really matter. So you can get away without an alternator on a real old machine. Like the Dynaho never had an alternator, and we would start that up dozens of times on one battery charge. So I put a ridiculously large battery in it. So that's why, even though it could seem like there's not a problem, especially you put a battery in it and oh man, I went weeks without a problem. Well, you didn't. You just didn't. And of course, it could be getting only a little bit of a connection, in which case, you know, it might charge just a tiny bit, but not really. The other thing we're gonna do is, this cover's missing here. I'm gonna see if we can't make something out of diamond plate or whatnot to put over there, because when this had a bad exhaust leak, it was just coming right up the guy's back and right up into his face area, and that's hardly ideal. The first thing we're gonna check is that when the key is on, there should be power at both of these wires, actually. I think that's why they're both yellow. The other thing is, when you look at the wiring diagram, it's got wire numbers on it. You can see C444 and 300. So these are the wires, anyways. So right now, key is off. I should have nothing at either one of these. This is you know, just a light up thing if it gets power. It's hooked to the ground right now. Nothing and nothing. Okay, that's correct. Turn the key on, you hear the main relay fire off, and well, we got juice there. We got juice there. Now, I suppose at this point, that's when you might say, well, it's probably a bad alternator. But I know this is the third alternator. It's nice, it's clean, it's new. Nothing looks too bad about it. So, we're gonna go down and look at the only other place this thing connects through, which is the 60 amp main circuit breaker, which, I'll tell you what, this is the first time I've ever worked on a machine with a circuit breaker. So one thing in the wiring diagram is a little bit tricky, is that it looks like there's two 60 amp breakers, whereas there is only the one, but I think it's a 2-pole breaker, or they just refer to it twice. I'm not quite sure. But it clearly doesn't need to be reset. But the one thing we can check is this is the wire from the alternator. And I think you guys can see it pretty well. Well, it's just completely loose. It ain't connected. So we're gonna take, rather than try to sneak a wrench in underneath here like the last guy probably did, we're gonna take both of those screws off, pull the breaker out, and then we're gonna try to get access to that. See what's going on there. But I think at this point it was just a loose wire. Which, to be fair, with the way this machine has been kind of messed with, I'm not that surprised. There's so much room in here. Just, oh crap, stupid light. What the hell is this? I don't think... Yeah, we're gonna get an air filter for this guy. Okay, now we got some room. We got the air filter that is definitely gonna be replaced out. We also might at least put some covers over this cut in there. Or that's the intake side. That doesn't much matter. Sorry, this is the air inside. Doesn't much matter, but this is to the engine side, and that one looks good, so we'll be all right there. That should be it. Okay. Well, we'll take a look at this guy. Wow, it does not want to rotate. And yeah, let's get down in here. This is the alternator feed wire. Clearly that's not gonna actually charge it, but it will sometimes. And he's had other electrical issues with this that I think can actually all be attributed to this, because I believe that this wire is the one that goes directly to the battery. So this goes to the alternator, and these two power everything else. So it's probably been getting pretty crappy power to the system for a long time. So we're gonna get her here with a 10, 11, 12 millimeter socket and take the whole thing off, and we're gonna sand these down, clean them up good, put a little dielectric grease on them, maybe not, and slide it all back together again. Interesting enough, the bolt is not loose. It's almost like it bottomed out, so it's probably missing a washer or something. Now my question is kind of like, oh, well, that's interesting. It was definitely in there by something, but that's not how the end of a bolt's supposed to look. Curiouser and curiouser. No, there's nothing broken off in the hole. Is that helicoil? No, it's not helicoil. So this is it. You can see, oh, this is perfect. You can see what happens when you don't tighten it down right. This has literally just been eating its way through, making and breaking contact with this. So this alternator might be dead again because of this intermittent contact. But let's get all these wires cleaned up. You can see they're all just not acceptably clean. It's just a little bit of filth. So we're gonna get some cleanup stuff. We're gonna clean this up. We are gonna put dielectric grease on it. I'm gonna see if I have a better. Oh yeah, these are not the original fasteners on here. How do you? Yeah. Oh, it's not the right. It's not the right thread. Or that bent little bit of thread is screwing us up. What the frig? My God. There should be a test to own hand tools. Whoever did this would have gotten an F-. Don't get me wrong, there's some days when I do F- work, but usually not on, like, $30,000 skid steers. Yeah, and this whole thread's all completely dickered. I don't even understand why you would see this thread and then think this is what you should put in there. I mean, and it's clearly this one threads right in, no problem. This, oh, let's just force it until we dicker up the threads. That's the right way. So I'm gonna be going to the hardware store to get another one of these, so that will fix the alternator. I did run it through the kind of boogered up hole. It's definitely a lot. It was just a little bit tight, and it cleaned up good though. So they haven't. At least they didn't ruin it. But geez, guys, this is a $150 or $200 alternator times however many times it got replaced, for want of a hardware store bolt that they put a frickin' $1/4 that was like snapped off by, I don't know. All right, I'm done being a negative Nancy about this. It is what it is, and probably a lot of this is why my buddy could actually afford this machine. So, you get a bargain basement machine, you get a bargain basement machine. So, okay, so one thing I want to think about though, and you might be asking, well, how do you know which wires go on which side of this? And I thought to myself, I should double check, because I know these three were on one side of it and these three were on the other side. But then I looked at the wiring diagram, which should be popping up on the screen, and figured out that actually only the battery is supposed to connect to this circuit breaker, and everything else is supposed to go on the other side. Now this wire is a number 109 wire, and actually all of the after breaker wires are labeled 109-something, and the battery wire is labeled 101, which this one is labeled. So this one is the Gazintu, and the rest of them are the Gazauda. So that was also wrong, because, as one does. I'm going to get these all set up. I'm going to put a, that should be fine. I'm just going to clean these up with some Scotch-Brite, get them prepped, bolt it all back together again, and then we'll be happy. All right, we're all back together again. That was a real fight, but I got everything on. It's on correctly now. All the inputs are on the right side, or all the inputs are on the left side, the one input. All the outputs are on the right side, as it was intended. So now we gotta test and see if this fixed it, but before I fire it up, I just checked the dipstick a minute ago and I swore it wasn't even on the dipstick, but this is acceptable. Okay. All right, well, we're gonna go try to fire this thing up, and this time, maybe she'll start, and then we will see if it's charging. All right, so to see if our alternator is alternating, and it may still not work, we're gonna put our meter, there we go, we're gonna put our meter right here, and we're gonna check the voltage with the machine off. 12.95-ish. And now we're gonna fire her up and rev it up a little bit, and that should let us know if we've been successful. But first I'm gonna remove all of the stuff that I piled on top of the engine that will surely end up in a poor place if I don't. All right, 12.67 at idle. That's not a great sign. It's only reading 12.7 with it running, so it's still not charging. All right, well, we fixed the alternator wiring. That was definitely a problem, but I believe the intermittent connection there may have killed the alternator again. So we might be popping that out and putting a new one in for the 4th time, unless my buddy has numbers 1, 2, or 3 with him. But I suspect that the voltage regulator didn't like being connected and disconnected that way, and also a poor connection means it's probably drawing a lot of amps, and drawing a lot of amps will kill an alternator. Unfortunately, there's not too much more we can do with that at the moment, so we're going to leave that there, though. That was a big issue. I'm a little disappointed about the alternator. I was really hoping that would be the big solution, but it's certainly part of it. All right, guys, another day here working on the Cat 302.5 Mini. Right now, we're trying to change out the hose way up in there, and because that's the lowest point in the system and we're replacing it, we just basically cut it up and drained it out. But looking at the hydraulic oil that came out of that, it's not going back in. And if you had smell-o-vision, this doesn't smell amazing. So we're going to change all the hydraulics fluid out. This is not the fluid of choice for this. This is just the buckets we're decanting it in, just so you know. The alternator's out right now. We pulled that out earlier to get a new one of those done, and to remove the alternator, you also get the joy of removing the starter. We probably won't in this episode be putting that back together again because we're waiting on an alternator. That's kind of where we're probably going to end up, is we're going to finish draining this out, replace the hose up in here, and we'll probably call it there for the week. All right, guys, we're trying to get this old hose off. I'm taking a razor knife and I'm cutting, but you don't want to touch the hose. You don't want to put scratches in that because it makes paths for the oil to follow to escape. So just do a number of light cuts. You don't even have to get all the way through. It'll kind of work its way out eventually. Come on. All right. Oh, this is also some pretty... There we go. Ah, come on. There we are. There she is. There's the source of our leaks. This is the main suction line for the main hydraulic pump, so that's why we really want this to be in as good a shape as we can. And then I'm cleaning this pipe back because what we're going to attempt to do, so we don't have to disturb other lines that could also be troublesome, we're going to try to slide it all the way on there and then slide it back over that one. So we're basically going to lube the heck out of it with some silicone grease and get it on there. All right, well, we're all lubed up here. That was pause for all your jokes. I know it's going to be made. And the goal is just to force this like that. And, yeah.
You might need to.
Oh, that actually...
Like a hot dog down a hallway.
Whoa. All right. And then... Go.
Oh, yeah. That's the spot.
All right, well, she's back in. We're gonna get the that worked out way too well. So yeah, silicone grease. It's got a lot of uses. All right, guys, got the hose clamp on, get the pipe situated, and one thing, don't murder these things on. It's a suction line. It's not a pressure line. It'll be fine. There we go. See if I can still rotate it. That's all right. That's the silicone grease. That'll go away in time anyways. And you want to try to, like, there's a ridge on each one of them, and my thought is try to get almost on the ridge and kind of squeeze it down. Just, that should be golden. I know it still slides around, but it's a smooth pipe with silicone grease on it. Should be all right. Well, the only way we'll be able to find out is when we fill it back up with coolant, which we're fluid, which we're not going to do today. But we are just going to button it back up. It's just 4 bolts to put the cover back on, and then that's probably about it for this week. But at least we got a few of the major things done. We troubleshot the alternator, and that's better. We got the main leak problem fixed. There's still the pressure accumulator that we need to pull off and get a new seal for that, but my buddy's gonna hit up Cat tomorrow, and he might get that or get it from the hardware store. It should just be an O-ring. And so that'll be a lot of the leaking of this machine done under here. And then we're gonna finish up with this and go on to the hydraulic cylinder rebuild, and that'll be my first. But hey, you know, how hard can it be, right? Anyways, have a great week. Thanks for watching Wires, Tires, and Fires.